Apparently I'm live. So if you're here with me, let me know. I'm live. I'm alive. Two people. There's just two of us. It's just me and Bobby. Hey, Bobby. How's it going? Happy Saturday. Plurft. Stan, you have a name that's easy to read. Plurft. We can work on that. Lord Pangloss, hello. Good to see you. Happy Saturday. I hope you're well. Good to catch up with you, Rick. What's popping? Whoa, here they come. Hey guys, what's up? What's up? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for watching the premiere, guys. Appreciate it. It was a pretty convoluted one this time, but I actually think there's probably like 3 videos that I tried to wedge into that one thing that should have each had their own treatment. But I think the topic is pretty important, so I'm happy that I had a chance to cover it. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome. Everybody's welcome here. Doesn't matter who you are. Come into the digital room. Take a digital seat. Make yourselves comfortable. I bless the chat by giving it my endorsement. I am Jason Somoza, and I endorse this live stream. I endorse this chat. Please be fruitful. Multiply. I have some bits and pieces that I definitely want to run through. But if you guys have any questions or comments that you want to share in the chat for the wider group, share them, and I'll try and dig into them. So this is only my second live stream, so I'm still pretty new to all of this. So please forgive me if I'm a little bit slow. Dead fish cheese spread. That's a heck of a name. Just saying, you were only made the last 30 seconds of the last one. You know what? The last one was really fun. We got to talk about a lot of stuff, including Skyrim, including Stephen Greer, including the Book of Enoch. Where's your reverse panda? That was also another topic of discussion. I'm watchless. It's just me and my wrists. So I'm actually really curious, the people in the chat who just watched the premiere, have any of you ever come across Dr. Pandolfi before? Have you ever had questions about him? Have you ever been curious about him? Because I don't know what the temperature is. Like, I became like obsessively interested in him over a year ago, and I just got lost in the research. So making this video was the fulfillment of a lot. There's a guy called Carl Quinn here. Carl, good to see you, man. What's going on? This is for my friend Carl, actually. He'll want to see this. Look. See that? It's real. I'm supposed to be going on holiday with Carl, but I have a foot injury, unfortunately. Guys, welcome. Grant Cameron. Oh my gosh, yeah, Grant Cameron. Al Davis says, "Where's Bob Bigelow gone? Last time I asked, where is Tom DeLonge gone?" Yeah, we talked about Tom DeLonge last time. Where's Bob? I don't know. You know what? I haven't really looked into Bob in a big way. I know lots of small details about him, but I don't know what he's doing. But if you watch interviews with him, he does seem to have become he seems to have accepted that everything's just going to go to shit. That's my impression of Bob. He basically, there's an interview he did with Jeffrey Mishlove on New Thinking Aloud, where he was like, yeah, I'm an explorer, I'm a dreamer, but I don't think we can solve this issue. I think everything's just going to go bad, was effectively what he was saying. So I wonder whether Bob's just given up. And you may have noticed he did a competition a few years ago to find the best evidence that life persists after death. And I think that's a very indicative of somebody who wants to move his focus away from this life to the next one, right? It's like, this life isn't going to work out so well. Let's make sure we can prove there's another one. Which personally, I actually get a lot of comfort from my belief that there will be more life after death. It helps me stay sane at moments where you feel like there isn't much hope. Okay, let's see here. Anyone CIA is just a baddie to me. Yes. Is this a UFO channel? It is, but it's also maybe a little bit broader than that. When are we going to get major disclosure, says Carl? You know, someone said, a lot of people actually, even some people I really respect, have said that Trump is going to say something this year. You know, 2 years ago, I would have listened to that caliber of person. I won't say who they are saying that to me, and I would have been like, "Oh my gosh!" But there's also just been so many promises about so many things. I don't put any weight on it. Tom DeLonge gone. Very good, Robzilla. I like that. Tom DeLonge gone. Hi from Carlisle. Hey, you're close to Galloway Forest Park. Apparently, there's a great night sky up there. Welcome. Mishlove won Bigelow's contest. Oh, did he really? Oh, that's so funny. I didn't know that. Bobby Broadway, my number one chat commenter. You held the fort there, Bobby. My goodness. My goodness. There was a whole second video being created in the chat by Bobby. Good work. Someone should give this man a raise. Privatization of space, but other technical bros, JD Vance, have moved it into the militarization of space. Yes, it's an interesting thing. Eric Lidenberg, do you think there's anything to the rumors of something 26, 27? No, actually, I don't. And I actually think, I do think that there is concerns about something that could happen in the not too distant future. But I think the 26, 27 thing, this is just me riffing. I don't have solid evidence for this. But the way that thing spread around, I almost feel like it was like a exercise, a test, just a little psychological operation as part of the UFO disclosure movement to test how the movement and wider population, how far that idea could go and the impact it might have. You know, by just dripping this information out in a sort of a subdued way, what impact would it have? Because let's say they are worried about something happening in 2040. Round about now, you'd want to start testing the public's ability to handle it. So I think that's something worth considering. Also, another thing to bear in mind about this, which I've spoken about before, don't forget about the look at me waving my pen like I'm some sort of dictator. Don't forget the power of a future event to make you give up. You know what I mean? Like, I think I mentioned this in the last live stream. If you know that your mum's going to get home in 20 minutes and the entire house is a mess because you just threw a house party, are you really going to start trying to clean up if you know she's coming back in 20 minutes? If she's not coming back for the foreseeable future, you will clean the house. But if she's coming back in 20 minutes, you might just give up. It's the same thing with a movement like this. If someone tells us, oh, it's all going to be revealed in 2027, a lot of people just kind of give up and become passive, which stops the activism. So it's actually a really good tool to harm a movement. And I think that's really worth considering. If this is all true, and if there is something to hide, actually disseminating the myth about 27 or whatever it is really good at slowing people down. I certainly at points was like, well, what's the point in even starting a YouTube channel? It's all going to come out, you know? Okay, let's see here. Bigelow, laying low bigly. Yes, Stan. This is good. There's some really good linguists in the chat. I saw a great video by a Dutch neuroscientist who looked into life after death. You guys should read Leslie Kane's book about it. I found it really compelling and at the very least inspiring and interesting. It's fascinating. What are your thoughts on Lou Elizondo? Don't trust him. I don't trust him. Something fishy about him. But I'll tell you something. I think he did run a UFO program. So here's again, it's just me pontificating, okay? Here's what I think about Lou Elizondo. I think as this sort of Democrat group started to plan a kind of a disclosure moment around Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, it got derailed by Trump, and Tom DeLonge turned out to be a bit of a disaster. So they needed new figureheads. So along comes Jeremy Corbell, and along comes Lou Elizondo. Now, what is Lou Elizondo's strength? Actually, he was and continues to be a very good communicator. He's persuasive, he's engaging, he's emotionally potent in the way that he positions things. And I know these days many of us have doubts about him, right? So we kind of look at him, we think, well, actually, do I really like Lou Elizondo? But, you know, back in 2017, 2018, he was probably the best person that the movement had, okay? I think as they started this story about ORSAP and ATIP, and they fudged these two things together, they were trying to create a story with someone who had enough charisma to lead it that could get traction in the media. So they took ATIP, they blended it with ORSAP. They had ATIP, which was this UFO program. ORSAP's a bit too crazy for the mainstream media. They blend them together. So you have this $22 million investment, which wasn't for ATIP, it was for ORSAP, as we all know. And then you put Lou Elizondo in charge of this new fudged dream program as part of a media operation. So I think Elizondo, on the one hand, was kind of put in this situation and put himself forward into a disastrous idea, which consequently has led to loads of confusion, which they still didn't clear up in the Age of Disclosure documentary, which I thought was really annoying. They should have just addressed it head on. But then I also think there's something else going on here. I think Elizondo was involved in a UFO program, but he can't talk about the real one. He can't name it. He can't talk about it in any meaningful way, because if he was to do that, he would be breaking a security oath. That's what I think is going on. And we certainly should also bear in mind that he did have a very senior role running a special access program in the Obama White House, involving Guantanamo Bay, which it's so interesting how these figures often have a connection to 9/11 and terrorism, like post 9/11 world. The same with Dr. Pandolfi. There's a connection there with WinPAC. Anyway, that's my take on Elizondo, and I think I'm suspicious of him. I don't know what he's trying to do. I think actually a lot of people in the movement don't like him anymore. Even the people on the inside, I think that's probably the case. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Is Trump's interest in Greenland UFO related? I've been thinking that. I don't have the answer for you, but like I think a lot of us are thinking that, right? It's kind of weird because NATO already gives the United States all the defensive needs that they have in terms of Greenland. So yeah, there's already pacts and agreements in place in terms of Greenland that means that Trump doesn't have to do this. So what is his interest? What is it? And I do think that's very interesting. Recently, I heard someone saying actually he's after Iceland. So maybe it's a North Sea oil thing. I don't know. But interesting to speculate. From Finland, Avi Loeb will start his own channel. Okay. I don't really care for Avi Loeb, personally. I just not a big fan. I've heard a lot of nasty stories about him, and I don't know. Maybe he's a nice guy, actually. I shouldn't be saying anything about Avi. Don't know who he is, really. I think they're preparing people for AGI, definitely. That's definitely coming. Let's see here. Three-body problem. Ahem. Yeah, what was the three-body problem thing? It was this group of aliens who lived in a binary star system which had become destabilized. And so they had started to plan a journey to Earth where they had sent these sort of probes ahead to prep the planet for their arrival. Very interesting. Very interesting, yeah. It's quite a scary theory. People have said things about that, haven't they? Good morning from Sydney. Morning, mate. Thanks for having this. Was a good listen. Thank you for listening. I actually feel like it wasn't one of my best narratively. I wish I'd spent more time writing the script, because after I'd finished filming it, it was a bit difficult to make it feel like a flow, and I didn't feel like I tied the pieces together very well. But if you chew over the information in the video, I actually think it's incredibly important, because the role of Pandolfi and the factionalization of UFO world is very revealing and important, because the UFO world is not monolithic. We talked about it in the last video, and this video shows it again. It's actually chaos under the hood. There is no single group of people who is in control of this narrative. Trump's interest in Greenland was partly at Golden Dome. It's a very good point. Interesting. AI bubble, yes, shall pop. They can't afford for it to pop, can they? I think that's the thing. Did you guys see this? That actually if you remove the AI companies from the Fortune 500, it just it's an economic disaster. We would be in a global recession by now if it wasn't for AI. So as soon as that bubble pops, I think we'll all be taking a nice long holiday. Not in a good way. Roger Penrose has some amazing hypotheses, human brains, and quantum calculations. My neighbor Mark, I'm in Vic. Okay. I don't know what that means, Mickey says, but I appreciate you sharing it. Kurt J. Mungle's interviews with Penrose have been great recently. Elizondo ghosted a prisoner. Okay. How many people here think 4 Chinese balloons were shot down in February 2023? Very interesting. Tickle torture with his chin beard, says Al Davis. Thank you, Al. It's very helpful. I always liken him. I always liken it to the you can run but you can't hide trope. Using a VR toy. If you were to just full tinfoil hat mode, what do you think they are really hiding? Love your content, Polarity Josh was how I found you. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it, man. I think they are 100% hiding the reality of a non-human intelligence. I think that's definitely the case, and I think it's weirder than extraterrestrial. Evidently, like all the stories are just weird. I think what's really going on is it's kind of earth-shattering, probably in terms of how we view reality and everything, because it's just so strange. So I think there's definitely something there, and I also think that the advancements in the last 100 years or so in technology would completely shock us, actually. Like, I think, for example, the ability to simulate an abduction, to fly craft that people think would be magic, to manipulate the human mind. I think all these things are way more advanced than we would be comfortable believing. I think that's also being hidden for the purpose of war, right? To make sure ahead of the scheduled World War III, which I think we have about 12 months until that's supposed to start. Whenever that starts, people are going to be shocked at the technology. Like, look at these drones over America. Whose are those? There's I think there's some technical capabilities out there that would completely shock us. Personally, I struggle with the future humans or time travelers theories related to UFOs. Where do you stand on that? Great question, man. I actually I think it's such an interesting theory. And the way Jesse Michaels explained it recently, I found really helpful. Just he was kind of regurgitating Michael Masters, but in a very clear and concise way, about how that if you follow where evolution is going to go, it does end up looking somewhat like a gray alien. And I found that kind of compelling. I'm not a biologist, so I'm relying on other people's explanations of what happens with this, but I find that compelling. And also, like, this is me stepping outside of my realm, but space and time are connected. Space and time are related. So what does it mean for us to travel faster than the speed of light? It's a journey through space that has implications for time. So I think it doesn't sound crazy to imagine that if we crack really fast travel through the universe, that it might also have implications for travel through time. And because of that, the multiple timelines hypothesis, I'm definitely curious about it. That being said, there's too many things to dig into, and I haven't dug into that one very much. So it's just a lot. It's a lot. Hi, Jason. Appreciate your input to the discourse and your thoughtful videos. Hope your channel gets more views. Thanks, man. I haven't watched the new video yet. Excited. Just love your stuff. Willingness to dive into Valet's books. Curious if you think DeLonge is just a pawn. I think the thing with DeLonge is complicated. Like, I think, yes, in many ways you could meaningfully describe him as a pawn, but that makes him sound entirely passive. And I just do not think that's the case. In fact, I'm going to be doing a even deeper dive on DeLonge. It's not going to be a professional video. It's going to be a presentation I do on Patreon, where we go all the way back to 2011. This is before any of his kind of meetings in 2015. And he was already saying a lot of the stuff he would say later about the Nazis and about, interdimensional stuff and, all these things. He was already relatively mature in his thinking. So I resist the psyop porn narrative with DeLonge because, firstly, there is no single puppet master which is controlling everything. So that language of porn makes it sound like he's just in the game. Actually, there's many shows in town, and DeLonge was connected to one of them. But he was also very proactive. And I just think you've got to give the guy credit. He achieved a hell of a lot. And he's somewhat politically aligned and connected to a group of people who've turned out in some ways to be a little bit dubious. But I just don't feel like I would never summarize him as a pawn, to answer your question. Yeah. Greys are well known where I live in Africa. They're part of traditional folklore. in a few tribes. I've seen one of these things are 100% real. They're recorded in ancestral memory. They've been here eons. Thank you, Wes. And great to know people from Africa are watching as well. That's so cool. People see these things, you know, and there's that famous Alcantara working that's not Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley did, where he summoned this entity, this interdimensional Enochian entity, which he called Lamb. And people have commented, they're like, size of the head and the look kind of looks like a gray alien. And that's it's just interesting where these weird looking entities pop up. We're going to be looking at Aleister Crowley in the next video, so that's why I'm got it so fresh off the top of my head. Dead Fish Cheese Spread says, I had an orb float 150 feet over me in 2023. 7 hours later, the FAA grounded all flights in the US. Only the second time in history. That must have been pretty freaky. Thank you for sharing that. Al Davis, I'm hoping for the personal robots and smart houses, it would stop waste, make people safe and healthy and provided for, but people need to contribute to society to have that reward. Make art. Yes. Thank you for dreaming of a bright future, Al. In a time where everything's so apocalyptic. Stephen Greer is pretty close to being a gray alien. Did that guy take steroids? How did he get so big? Awesome show, thanks. Thank you, Fetch. Appreciate it. The Colaris incident, humans or aliens? Great question. That incident's weird. I mean, it looks like aliens, but who knows these days? I would really love to hear from Tom. I wonder what caused him to step away. We talked about this in the last live stream. I just think Tom got access to loads of information and he couldn't stop sharing it, right? He couldn't stop sharing it. Every interview he would do, he would say too much. So I do think he actually has been pulled back. And the only appearances he makes now are on the To the Stars podcast, which is on Spotify and is always really interesting, which is hosted by Jim Semivan. Almost in a handler type role. I'm sure both of them would say, no, it's not like that, but it kind of is. Plasma. This is the key to much, especially paranormal, human history. And as Jay Wiedner expresses, hi, Journey's interview, we live at the bottom of a plasmoid ocean. So interesting. I do have a book about plasma here, which I have been intending to read. It's called A New Science of Heaven. And I think it's about this kind of body of plasma which exists in between the Earth and the Moon. And there has been a lot of speculation that plasma may have the capacity to become conscious. I have not looked into this, but it's very interesting to me. So I see your comment and it reminds me of a lot of things that I'm thinking about. Tom DeLonge used to frequent a hotel I worked at in Del Mar, San Diego. Hey, Shai Amarana. Sorry if I mispronounced your tag. That's really cool because in Valet's Journals, volume 6, where he's talking about his meetings with DeLonge, this one here, there is a reference to a series of very important meetings which Tom DeLonge, Jim Semivan, Chris Mellon, Jacques Vallée, and all those people were attending whilst To the Stars was getting launched. So those meetings that I don't know if you saw the meetings, maybe you just seen Mr. DeLonge hanging around. But if you saw those meetings, it's a big deal. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. SV Harkin says, DeLonge doesn't matter to me, except he was influencing the youths. He certainly was. It seems like he was picked because he already believed what they wanted to push. Yeah, I think somewhat. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see here. It's one of the oldest images of Greys. 2013. Old Mr. Crowley and Lamb, says Jared's Inferno. I wonder if it is where modern contact started and the occult connection. Yeah. It's certainly, the Collins elite definitely believe that was the moment that the end times began and this influx of non-human entities began to enter our world. There is something there. And I don't know if you guys have ever read a biography of Aleister Crowley, but dude's life was really interesting. And we're going to talk about these voices that he heard in Egypt when he was in Cairo with Aiwas. Very interesting, especially the theology that he kind of created. Let's see here. Jason Samosa, any thoughts on Daryl Anker's channeling Bashir? You know, Eric, So many people ask me about Daryl Anka, and when I watched a couple of videos, I just felt a little bit unsure because it's always a bit weird when someone claims to channel an entity. And something about it rubbed me up the wrong way, you know? For all I know, Daryl Anka is literally channeling an entity called Bashar, and we all need to pay attention, but it's just a bit weird, isn't it? Like, and also, like, I'm not saying that people aren't channeling entities. I suspect people are channeling entities. It's just there's so many of them all saying so much weird stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of weird. If these entities really wanted to communicate with us, why would so many of them communicate so many different things through so many different people? It's really perplexing. So I'm really skeptical about these. What's really going on there? But I appreciate the question. That's my answer. Is I'm kind of skeptical. Should I get interested in consciousness plasma? I'm hearing quite about that a lot recently. Fetch, I can't tell you what to get interested in. If I had to tell you what to be interested in, it would be UFOs in general, which clearly you are, because you're here in a pretty obscure niche channel live stream. That, and also The Legend of Zelda. It's another great interest to have. That'll bring you a lot of comfort. And apart from that, I could recommend a few good bands to listen to. If you're looking for like broad things to think about, which I know you're not, you're asking me about plasma, but I'm just being silly and skirting around the question. Do fish know they are in water and that there's a whole world above them? I understand the question you're asking. Yes. I understand it's a rhetorical question. It's not one that I need to answer. Thank you, Glitchy Code. With Aleister Crowley, I wonder if he was connected to the occult people and groups from Europe. Any thoughts on Joseph Farrell's work? I love Joseph Farrell. I've got nearly all of his books literally just right there. Love his work. It's so interesting. Do you have any thoughts on Ammon Hillman take on Christ in the occult? Never heard of it. Interesting. Hey, Jason, says Marky 2.0. Hey, Marky 2.0. Good to see you. The Legend of Zelda, Psychogenic seconds that. Thank you, Psychogenic. Okay, cool. Well, if you guys have any more questions, let me know. What I want to do very quickly is I actually just want to clarify some of the things I was talking about in the episode, because I think this is really, really important. We talk at the end of the episode, I bring up this Army Psychological Operations Manual from 1994, which tells us what we all know, which is the best way to destroy a group of people is to divide and conquer. So take that group, split them into groups, and make them all fight against each other. It's a brilliant way to ruin a movement and to destroy something which could potentially be very powerful. It's classic psychological operations. You can see it throughout the post-war era being used very effectively. This modern wave of UFO disclosure, whatever you think about it, it has the potential to be quite dangerous. It's so disruptive to talk about this topic. It can topple trust in authority. So even if there was no truth to it, the fact that the conversation was gaining so much traction would be of concern to intelligence people. I think it is totally reasonable to assume that a psychological operation would begin, and that it would be used to try and tear this movement apart. Even if you're sitting there and thinking, but this movement's not that important, it's not going anywhere. But it doesn't matter whether you think it's important or not. The reality is the growth of interest in UFOs has exploded since 2017. Let me give you some numbers for that. The UFO subreddit, when the New York Times article came out in 2017, had about 70,000 members. Today, it's over 4 million members. That is a growth rate of like 4,000% or something. It's nuts. It's nuts. So people are becoming interested in a topic which bypasses the authority of government at a time when trust in government is at an all-time low. Of course, they're going to have some sort of psychological operations used to try and subdue this. I don't think it's conspiratorial at all. In fact, I think it would be foolish not to assume that would be the case. So what's going on here? We have 3 huge figures who emerged, and probably more you could name, but I think the 3 that we mentioned in the video are significant. You have Stephen Greer, who was just an ER doctor, and despite all of my issues with the guy, right? I don't think he's a good person. I think he's on a massive ego trip, some of which might be related to certain people whispering in his ear. But this guy accumulated hundreds of witnesses. He became a gravitational center focal point for disclosure, and he was a great communicator. He's a risk. You've got Joseph Firmage. a CEO from Silicon Valley who suddenly gets interested in the topic and sets up this group to try and push it out into the public. He's a risk. You've got one of the world's biggest rock stars who's the same. He's a risk. What do you do when these people start these movements? Do you just try and subdue it, or do you co-opt it? Right. That's what you do. You co-opt it. And I think the evidence is from the Robert Kiviat interview, from that email that Greer read, and there's other evidence I didn't include, which I should have included to build the case, because you can make a really strong case that Pandolfi was involved in both those groups. My perspective is, I'm not telling you this is true, this is what I think, is that Pandolfi got into those two people early and offered them support. You heard Stephen Greer saying, this man's the reason I'm still alive. Now that makes it sound like they've known each other for a long time. And, he's saying he's helping behind the scenes. How is he helping? What information is he sharing? He's obviously telling Stephen Greer stories of what's going on inside of this world that he's claiming to be a part of. I think it's very interesting that Stephen Greer seemed to have become so unable to cooperate with people and seemed to take such strange adversarial positions against various people in the movement. And similarly with Joseph Firmage, starting a group and then trying to compete with To the Stars Academy really aggressively. And also I spoke to Joseph Firmage. He's a really nice guy, but at the end of the day, he's just spread a load of really weird information into the community. All it does is it just makes everything look like BS. And it creates infighting and division. And I think my genuine theory is that Pandolfi tried to do this with To the Stars Academy, but because it was politically so antithetical, and because of what he'd done with Bill Clinton and the Clintons in general, and because of the things he'd done that Valet knew about and these people knew about, there was no way he was ever going to be able to work with them. So the other option was just to stir dissension against them. And by the way, don't forget that in the last video we had, I was very clear, I think there's huge issues with To the Stars Academy. You shouldn't trust what you're hearing from them. I think it's a really mixed venture. So I'm not saying good guys, bad guys. I'm just saying it's groups of people fighting for control of this narrative. And it's a mix of sort of orchestrated collisions, which makes UFO world look completely crazy. It makes the YouTube and Twitterverse look insane. And all that does is bury the reality of the information and testimony that's available, which proves demonstrably that this topic should be taken seriously. I think that's what's going on. So that I feel like I probably communicated that a lot clearer than I did in the video ultimately. But all the stuff about Greer and Firmage was about that. And the build up to that was all those quotes from Valet's journals, which I think shows that Pandolfi's posture towards the UFO community, including the NIDS people, has always been pretty aggressive, to the point that he was trying to strip them of their clearances. And to the point where Jacques Vallée describes them as running a gross deception. I mean, those are strong terms. So yes, rant. Let's pause that rant for a moment. Okay, let's see here. Any questions? I've got Eric, Justin Samosa. Serious question. How much caffeine do you run through when you're doing your deep dive research? Any particular music you have running in the background? Yeah, I consume a good amount of caffeine until about 3 p.m. when I stop, because otherwise I really can't slow down in the evenings. And I listen to, I'll send you my playlist, actually. Let's see if I can put it in the chat now. Give me 1 second. It's a playlist that I have called Ultra Chill Zones, which is, let's see if I can share this thing now. It's just a bunch of ambient music, and there's music from Skyrim and Zelda, and just nice stuff. Okay, I'm gonna drop this in the chat. I don't know if it's gonna work, but let's see. There you go. I think you should be able to access that. So that's yeah, there's Skyrim, the soundtrack from Skyrim really just helps me get into a deep space. And there's some ambient stuff, just things to help me chill and get into a deep round of work. I always find I do my best work when I have nothing scheduled for 6 hours. I can make a big pot of coffee. I make sure everything is not going to bother me. I put my phone on silent, and I put some music on, and I put up my headphones because it just helps me feel more like I'm in this little cocoon. and then I just get into it, and I stay not optimistic, but positive and kind with myself. Sort of acting like a coach, pushing myself forwards, and I can achieve a lot when I get into that headspace. Yeah. Um, let's see here. Dismantle the subject. Jason, love your work. It would be great to understand how you choose particular topic segments. Yeah, actually, what I love is I think in this way we are all similar. I go on YouTube sometimes and I've searched particular topics that I'm interested in. You guys will do it as well. Like, for example, I'm going to do this 3-part series on the Collins Elite, which kind of came out of some work I did looking at Netanyahu and Israel. And, these are topics where I was like, is anyone looking at Israel and trying to understand their geopolitics and connect it to this whole UFO issue? Because that strikes me as an interesting thing. And there isn't much about that. So then I'm like, well, maybe I'll try and make a piece about that because I want to see that story. I want to bring that to life. Similarly with the Collins Elite, there are some videos out there where they basically recite the story from Nick Redfern's book, which is just over here somewhere. And that's cool. I've read Redfern's book like 4 times now. But I don't want to just hear the story. I want to see how we could take that story and connect it to other things that we've heard. So, that's really exciting to me, is like, can we potentially, by tying together different bits of information, build an even bigger picture of this interesting topic? And then there's things like the theory that UFOs, some of it may in fact be our technology, that we may have the capability to simulate abductions. Okay, what a crazy hypothesis. There really aren't that many videos that really go into that in a deep way and make you feel like you go on a journey with it. And that to me is criminal. That's a theory that we should be exploring because there's so much evidence to support it, anecdotal, scientific. So I want to bring that to life. What I've also avoided, and I was originally planning to do this. I think I wrote this on a Patreon post recently. If you guys saw the number of scripts that I've started and they never were filmed, these are like fully written scripts on topics, it would make you cry because I know you guys look forward to the content and I want to make the content. I spent 2024, I was trying to make this like 20-part series about the history of the UFO phenomenon. And it just dragged for so long because I was trying to perfectly recreate all the stories and data. And actually nothing happened. And you know what was even lamer is, even if it had happened, I would have been regurgitating stories that other people were already telling. We would have been going over Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book, the Air Force, things that there's like 100 documentaries about these things. So something happened last year where I was just like, actually, I'm gonna have the confidence and I'm gonna give myself the credit to try and tackle topics that other people aren't tackling. And as soon as I started doing it, I got some good feedback. And I'm wise enough to know that as I do this, as I tie things together, I'm going to make mistakes. This narrative I stitch together sometimes will be wrong. That's okay, because I'm under no delusions that I've somehow discovered the truth. It's just one more theory for us to consider. So that's how I tend to think about it. I liked that question. It was nice to be able to share a bit about my internal thought process, which is always spinning around. Greer has recently come out in opposition to James Fox. Right? Why? Why? James Fox seems like a really legit guy. He's worked so hard to bring this issue into the public, and he hasn't embraced a threat narrative. James Fox hasn't, I don't think. Hey, Jason, fantastic episode on Pandolfi. Have you looked into Sarfati Institute? I touched on it in my most recent episode, and now watching your episode, I feel like the same happened to him. Yeah, exactly. Sarfati's another one. And I had a message with Sarfati once, because over the last year, I've been messaging all these people being like, blah, blah, blah about Pandolfi. I saw Sarfati say something kind of negative about Pandolfi. I was like, hey, are you having questions about him? Because Sarfati's known Pandolfi for years. And his response was, yeah, actually, recently, I don't know what his motivations are. I found it so interesting that Jack Sarfati he was questioning. He was like, what is Pandolfi doing? Because Pandolfi had tried to block him from doing something. I think Grant Cameron, Jack Sarfati, Stephen Greer, Joseph Firmage. I also suspect people like David Wilcock, Michael Salla, other individuals in the movement, probably, my speculation here, I'm not saying this is true, I'm not accusing Dr. Pandolfi, My speculation is they may have connections with someone like Pandolfi or individuals like him who are just spinning them in circles and causing them all to share random information. Because it, like I said in the video, and this is the power. Destroying a movement like this is so easy. It's so easy, you know? Like, what happens when you domesticate a cat? What happens? They go from being hunters to begging for you to give them breakfast, right? Like when my cats aren't here because I'm in Lisbon, they're back in the UK. But every morning I'd wake up, they'd be right there at my door. They'd be like, "Please feed us. We need you." I'd go downstairs and feed them. Okay, these cats, thousands of years ago, were out there just destroying things and eating it. They didn't need me to wake up. You can domesticate cats. You can domesticate UFO researchers. All you need to do is start dripping them information and they stop looking for it themselves. Doesn't matter whether the information is true. Maybe sometimes it should be true because that way they get addicted. It's like gambling, right? Got to make sure you win sometimes. And then I can just feed you a lot of false information. It's the same psychological manipulation. It's so easy because remember, every single person in the UFO field wants these inside sources, right? Tom DeLonge, Joseph Firmage, Greer, they all are getting information from the inside. And none of them can truly verify their sources, no matter what anyone says. You can't do it. So that's how that works. And yeah, I don't know how I started that rant, but it's very easy to do this and then turn people against each other, basically. Let's see here. Oh yeah, about Sarfati. Sorry, interliminality. Yes, I think Sarfati is having a similar experience, and it will be tailored to everyone's psychological profile. J. Emil says, do you think Chris Bledsoe is legit? Can we trust all the verification stories about the CIA? I think it could be a mix of things with Bledsoe. So we can hold a few things in contention. It strikes me, and this could all be a lie, but it seems to me that he definitely got attention from NASA, from the CIA, from the Ministry of Defense, from all these people, right? And you can get that from so many different sources. It's kind of undeniable that the Bledsoes were swarmed with Hal Povermeyer, Jim Semivan, Ron Pandolfi also. But that's a whole story which needs to be told another day. Tim Taylor, all these people turned up to see the Bledsoes. So I don't think you can argue that there wasn't something that happened. The real question for me is whether the non-human intelligence that he had this experience with was really a non-human intelligence, because I think we need to ask that every time. I think could be simulated. But the most important thing to me actually is, let's say it is the lady, the same lady that was seen in the Fatima incident or any of these other incidents through history. What do entities like that do? They tell you a load of BS about how the world's going to end. They tell you that you need to solve all these problems, that the world's in this precarious situation and humankind needs to start obeying God or whatever it is. And then they just go. The apocalypse never comes. The promises and prophecies of the end of the world never comes. So I do wonder, even if they had this experience, they are saying something's going to happen this year in Easter or the fall or whatever it is. I'm not holding my breath. So I think they're legit. I think they experienced something. I just wonder whether the information that they received is legit. And in that sense, they're kind of part of a weird operation, if you see what I mean. My personal take. Avi Loeb, the new military industrial complex, Golden Dome administration of space, all relates to Israeli security. That's an interesting topic. See, that's from SV Harkin 6907. That's the kind of stuff I would connect together and try and see if there's stuff to put together. So yeah, very interesting. Pattern recognition is key to higher states of consciousness. Interesting. You should go on Derp with Keep to discuss Collins. I don't know what that is. Derp with Keep, it sounds like you just made two noises, but I trust that there's more going on there. Higher states of consciousness. Dead Fish Cheese Spread says, I know Lou knows what it looks like. Okay. Kerp, it's Kurt Metzger show. Oh, that guy. That guy, he's quite intense, isn't he? The way you present grabs believers and debunkers alike. Thank you, Bobby. I think that's a compliment. The movement is sus. Agreed. Intermittent rewards. Yeah. Keep them tapped in. Let's see here. Safari Institute was around 1985, never got off the ground, like the others you mentioned, and the exact same script for the areas of research. Ah, interesting. So it was kind of like an academy model. That's so interesting. I wish I'd known that before I started the video. Thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. I'm going to definitely take a look at that sometime. Paraticus says, what do you think about Valet's new theory that we're dealing with a biological technology? I'm assuming this is what he mentioned at the James Fox thing. I didn't watch all of that. I haven't been keeping up to date. But the clip I saw was like, it's an extraterrestrial species leveraging advanced AI technology. I could believe it. I do think that there is going to be a life form behind the phenomena we see. So I think that's pretty compelling, and that was always kind of Valet's hypothesis, which was what we interact with in what we think we're perceiving and seeing and hearing in our experiences with this non-human intelligence is sort of a screen for the real thing, which is behind it. And all the variety of experiences and entities and communications, it's all there to confuse and muddle the witnesses from being able to stitch it all together. And through all that confusion, something is happening. As he described in his journals, this idea that someone is recompiling our reality, that they're sort of reconfiguring how things work through these events. I think that's right. And in terms of the extraterrestrial species, that would be like another species from our universe who is then has such advanced technology that they can create this system around us that controls us. Sounds legit. So yeah, I'm on board with that. And biological technology, I don't know if I didn't see everything, so maybe there's more to that. I don't know if you want to add in the comments to share that a bit more. Jared's Inferno says, Bledsoe did a good job bringing spirituality to the forefront of the phenomenon. I think there could be something to that for sure. I think Tim Taylor was hoping that Bledsoe could be the core of a new UFO religion, but it didn't really happen. That's an interesting idea. Okay, let's see here. Do you think shadow figures that people report seeing could be the fingerprints of remote viewers? I've thought this. Do you guys ever think that like ghosts or entity encounters could be remote viewers? You know, I thought it's such an interesting point. What happens when you remote view? Because there have been stories of who's that guy who like remote viewed a place at the back of the moon, and these entities turned around and saw him, and they were like, "You shouldn't be here. Don't come back." It's all just like lore, right? We don't know, but very interesting, Catherine. Yeah, I totally hear you, and I thought the same. Logan, about to go to work, about to watch the new video. Have a good day at work, buddy, and thank you for the kind comment. Plato's cave analogy, Al Davis. Yes, I think that's so relevant to everything. Realm Travel Channel. Hey man, the book you mentioned, A New Science of Heaven, is the same author of the other book I recommended from our podcast, The Serious Mystery. Oh, cool. Okay. Robert Temple. I've got so many books I've got to read. God, I don't know about you guys, but like, this is why I love this topic, is because there are 1,000 rabbit holes that you can go down. You'll never get bored. It's also sometimes overwhelming because it's 2026. My brain is fried. You know, I spend my entire life in front of screens, and my capacity for reading books is diminishing rapidly. It's the one moment in history where I need to read all the books, and Instagram has melted my brain. But here we are. I really like the reconfiguration idea. Thanks. It wasn't mine. All valet. I honestly think Tim Taylor is just explaining the hierarchy of beings in a way that has been taught to him from a young age. Yeah, I get it. I get the hierarchy of beings thing is biblical. It's biblical. It's just what's weird about it is if you take the hierarchy of beings and you mix it with the hybrid issue, like we did in the hybrid video, that's 4 videos ago now, the implications for how you view other people on the planet is really messed up. And it doesn't mean it's Tim Taylor's fault or Jim Lukatsky's fault or any of these people who talk about this hierarchy. It's just really worrying, especially when you have already on the planet huge racial and ethnic issues that are setting the world ablaze. So I find that to be concerning, but I know, I'm sure you appreciate that as well. It's the mix of those two things. Half of experiences are hallucination, including my own. It took a long time for me to separate those out. Interesting. I don't know. I've not had many serious experiences, so I couldn't say. Astral projections, yes, similar to remote viewing concept. Ooh, okay. School of SA. Do you think the breakaway civilization Farrell suggests in his works that emerged during World War II is really controlling humanity's evolution? That's a topic for a video. It's such a far out theory, but I actually think the breakaway civilization is a topic that someone needs to make a really good video on that. So that's definitely on the list. I don't know the answer to that, but I do think because of how secrecy works, a breakaway civilization is likely. And I again, I don't want to repeat something I said in the last live stream, but it's such an important thought that I'm going to repeat it. Modern warfare has made secrecy not just acceptable, but necessary. You can spend $500 billion on the most advanced technology in the world, but if that technology isn't secret, then you lose the surprise because your adversaries can prepare. If you've ever played Age of Empires, okay, I'm going to give you a video game analogy here. I used to love Age of Empires. You could build the most successful military in that game, but if your opponent scouts your base and sees that you're developing cavaliers and longbowmen, they can then prepare themselves and screw you up. So all this investment you've made into your military is undermined by the intelligence aspect, like the knowledge they have. It's the same in modern warfare, right? Secrecy matters. So why am I saying this? The breakaway civilization, the conception is that humanity has split, that some human beings now have access to technology which other human beings don't even know exists. They have access to a mechanism of finance and development and everything that separates them as well. And I think both of those things are totally plausible. Totally plausible. You need, in order for this modern world of warfare to survive, advanced technology must be kept secret. Discoveries of astonishing things must be kept secret and studied in secret and weaponized in secret. There needs to be a mechanism for off-the-books funding, so you can't be detected. All of these things are happening. This is just how the world works in 2026. So all I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we have a cake. I'm just saying that all the ingredients to bake the cake are there. And I would love to make a video to see whether or not the cake exists. So I think it sounds conspiratorial, but I think the breakaway civilization is interesting. Here's the really interesting question, I think. How far back does it go? Is it World War II? Is it World War I? What if it was something before then? That I think is interesting. What if it was in the time of Tesla, Edison, and the late 1800s? What if that moment of intense industrialization and financialization led to something? I'm not saying I know that, but I think that's, some people have theorized that, and I think that's really interesting because that would have huge implications for what we saw in 1947. Okay, let's see here. Age of Empires was the shit when I was a kid. Hey, it can also be the shit when you're a fully grown man as well. No, I'm just joking, actually. It'll give you a heart attack. It's really not good for you. StarCraft. Yeah, man. Never played StarCraft, but I've heard it's also really good. Let's see. Mickey says, it will be interesting to see if it changes when we move. I don't know what you're referring to, but that's okay. Regarding breakaway civilization, any thoughts on Jason Giorgiani? Jason Giorgiani seems like a nice guy with really interesting ideas. Honestly, I just feel like Jason Giorgiani would be that kid at school who would go to the maths exam and wouldn't ever show his working. He just shows you his results. And we don't know whether the results are right because no one knows which theories are correct in the world of this UFO speculation. But you need to show your working. And he would, I'm sure if he was here, he would be like, I do show my working. But watch interviews with him. Sometimes he says things where you're like, okay, you've just made a pretty far out statement, which is a premise in a bigger argument, and you haven't justified that premise. And that premise isn't obvious, you know? Like I was watching an interview with him recently where one of the premises in a very sophisticated argument he was making was a remote viewer seeing something on the moon. And I was like, that's a really interesting story, man. But that's not you. If you're going to build the argument with that as a data point, you need to talk. You need to change your tone of voice a little bit and be like, this is pure speculation, and I understand it's not a strong argument, but I do wonder, blah blah blah, right? But the tone of his argument was like, look, we know this, we know this, we know this. So I think Giorgiani, that's a criticism of him that I find a bit challenging. But also I find his interviews interesting because he talks about interesting stuff. So, but yeah, I don't go to him as a core source. He seems. I've chatted with him on X. He's a really cool guy, but I do sometimes struggle with not understanding how he's getting to certain data points. Bosley and Farrell. I like Farrell. You know what, Walter Bosley? I would put him in the bucket of useful, but used cautiously, because again, like Walter Bosley, like sometimes makes quite big logical leaps. I got really into him when I was looking into the airship mystery because he did this really interesting thing where he ties it back. So there's the airship mystery from 1897. I suspect most people who are on a live stream on a Saturday here will be familiar with that. What Walter Bosley does is he ties that potentially to some aerospace development happening in the 1800s. Now you might be like, aerospace development in the 1800s, what are you talking about? That's what's really interesting is there is some information about this kind of aero group, and there are these diagrams of craft, and there's this sort of information that he picks out. It's really interesting. It's speculative, but it's interesting. But again, a lot of logical leaps. So I would say Farrell, brilliant. Definitely make some mistakes, but a wealth of really useful information. Walter Bosley, yeah, take a look. Take it with a handful of salt, in my opinion. The Knit says, I think it goes as far as Atlantis before Younger Dryas. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? The whole Younger Dryas thing. And we all know as well, like, if there was a somewhat advanced civilization before the Younger Dryas, probably wasn't called Atlantis. It was probably called something else. And all of these Disney images that we have of it, those are our inventions. But I don't think it's out of the question that there was something before. Who knows? And whether a breakaway civilization could have occurred. It's very interesting. Our military drone tech is 10 times more advanced than the public realizes. I think you're right. Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of was best RTS. I've heard that was really good. Yeah. Dawn of War. Yeah. Okay. Carmageddon was brilliant. This is great. I'm glad we're talking about this. This is actually important stuff. Thank you for answering the question, says Chimerian. Giorgiani was pretty wrong about some German stuff in World War II. And he is one of those who say, I'm the only one right here. Yeah. It's a bit of that vibe. Yeah. Well, guys, I've just ranted for like an hour. It's a shame. I wish we could have a bit more of a interactive thing than just the chat, but it's great to talk with you guys. And I appreciate you jumping on here, taking part in the chat, having a good time, and also for your feedback about the video. I wish it was a bit clearer, but regardless, I think that this topic about Pandolfi, his role, psychological operations, and UFO disclosure is very important, and I'm glad to have at least pushed some of these ideas forward. So, yeah. Are you considering a live chat after your next video? Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to try and do it every single time, and I might even try and do a live in between. But I've scripted about half of the Collins Elite stuff, so I hope that it won't be such a long gap this time. I'm really looking forward to doing it. Post-bankruptcy, Malone says, do you talk to any viewers at all? I've experienced some wild shit that I can't explain. Yeah, I do. People reach out to me on X. They send emails. So some people have reached out on Instagram. I'm always down for chatting. The one thing I would say is keep it concise. I've had a few folks who, they'll write like 3 or 4 pages, and it's really surprising how many emails come in, and it's really nice. Like, until 6 months ago, I didn't get any messages from anyone. And it's really nice. I wish I could respond to them all, but it's really hard. So, if you share something, just keep it concise, and I'm always up for chatting. And it's better by X or Instagram. To be honest, email is just flooded with a lot of weird stuff. So happy to chat with you guys there. And if I'm slow to respond, I apologize. It's because I'm trying to work on the next video whilst doing my day job, whilst trying to read books with an Instagram brain. Okay, cool. Guys, have a wonderful Saturday afternoon / evening. Thank you for joining me. And all that's left to say is, my name is Jason Somoza. I have endorsed this live stream, and I appreciate you all. Take it easy. Ciao.